Welcome.
Hello and welcome to OzLoL Podcast, episode 88. My name is Colossus. I'm joined by two giant cookies on a screen. No, not kidding. That'd be Scott.
We're down to one cookie now.
Yeah, we're down to one cookie. It was eaten too quickly. Yes, this is episode 88. We are going to be talking this week about OPL Week 1, Day 1. We're also going to be talking about patch 5.9. If you're watching the Twitch, it says patch 5.10, but I realised when we got to the document, we've still got half of patch 5.9 to talk about. And there's some important stuff in there, so we're going to be talking about that. So, anyway, my name's Garrett Colossus, and I've completely lost my thing because of the cookies. Damn it. Damn you and your cookies!
And joining us today is...
Yeah, joining us today is cookie. Yeah. So...
Cookie.
Cookie, what are your
C is
thoughts
for
on
cookie.
patch 5.9 and should we have finished
Yeah.
it weeks ago? Yeah, we probably should have finished it weeks ago. See?
Wouldn't it be great if the cookie was like a magic, the magic 8 balls? You just shake it and see what it tells us. I'm joined by
He's vacuuming the crumbs up.
this week. Joining me is Scott Rankonius Rankin with his cookies, and we've got Stephen Garstone.
Hello.
Victor will not be joining us. Unfortunately, he's got some family. There was a death in his family, so we want to send our condolences as a podcast to him because, it's pretty awful. So, but he should be back next week. Also, another show news. Now, we've been saying for a few weeks now that we have a Trinity Force Network Patreon coming, and it has arrived. If you go to patreon.com/TForce Network, actually, I'll just check to see if it's TForce Network. You'll find our Patreon. There's different. There's I think 7 different pledge amounts. So, but the key one is the $10 a month a month pledge, which gets you access to our Champion Select podcast, which is a podcast just about a single champion. There is a sample that you can try, which is for Aurelia, basically, I think it's actually twice a month. They release a podcast just on a single champion. There's also $1 you get a state of the network video. So if you struggle to keep up with all the stuff that's going on in the Trinity Force Network, you can subscribe at that level or pledge at that level, and you'll get information finding out what you've missed out on and what you can catch up on. We're actually already reached. We've actually already reached our first 2 milestone goals. So. We've got a total pledge amount at this stage of $693 a month. So, coming out of this, obviously the website will always be up, and we're also getting a content delivery network, which basically means it will speed up the downloads from across the world. And actually, it will help me a lot because the upload speeds as well will also be improved. So I won't spend about 14 hours uploading it on my NBN speed internet. So I'm pretty happy about that. And when we get to $2,000 a month, they'll be sending people regularly to conventions and stuff. Well, it says in the content of the US, I suspect they'll be able to afford to send us to stuff like PAX or, I don't know, other things. So...
Send me to America!
Yeah, well, that's what I said, to the guys, I'm like, at what point do you get to send us to the US? And they're like, probably a bit higher than $2,000 a month. But it might happen.
Yeah, get on that, guys. If you want to get rid of Scott and myself for a week.
Yeah.
And of course leave Garrett behind.
Yeah.
Steve is remarkably easier to DDoS than I am, but he can repair it himself with his own workings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for advertising that, by the way. Anyone interested in DDoSing, just look up Stephen Guster.
That's it. I do it all the time. Just
DDoS for beginners.
DDoS for beginners.
I have the DDoS protection information.
Oh, nice.
It's fine.
We should also, speaking of actually things you might have missed in the network, the Riot Light and Ghost Crawler episode that was done, I think I mentioned it last week, but I've actually managed to listen to it this week, and it is an excellent show. You really need to catch it. So if you missed out on that episode, make sure you go and watch the VOD or listen to it, get it through iTunes or whatever. It's a really, really great episode where they talk about player behavior and all the psychology of the player behavior, and it's really, really fascinating stuff. So, and of course, the LCS Rundown and the Forwards podcast are doing excellent things as well. So make sure you check them all out. TrinityForceNetwork.com. All right, and in terms of our show, I don't think. Oh, we probably make mention of the fact that that the battle arena is on hiatus for 3 months, just as we go through the OPL. So that's going to be. If you're wondering on a Thursday night where we are, it's because we're watching the OPL. And I think that does it for show news. And speaking of OPL, let's talk about it. So we've had week 1, day 1 on Monday. 4 games: Sin versus Chiefs, Avant-Garde versus Team Immunity, Sudden Fear versus Legacy, and Absolute versus Direwolves. What did you guys reckon of day 1?
Well, the Sin versus Chiefs game was really good. Sin were looking very, very strong throughout the entire early to mid game. And if you were looking at League of Legends from a purely analytical standpoint, you look at the gold totals, you look at the maps, you look at the compositions, and where they're at the game, you would have come along and said, oh yeah, that the blue team will win. You know, Sins have got this. But Chiefs, you know, they're the best in the region, and they were able to turn that around, which was really exciting, because everyone's like, you know, leaning forward on the edge of their seats. Oh my god, this Chiefs gonna lose the first game of the split. But
yeah, there was a while there as I was thinking, this is not looking so great. I hope this starts to change, and then it did. So that was good.
Yeah.
All I was going to want to say about this match is I would have preferred to have seen this in a couple of weeks' time, when Sin have had a bit of LCS experience and whatnot, and weren't so nervous about their first professional game as a team, because Riot's scheduling, they like to open things with a big game, which is, you know, that's all well and good for bringing hype into the first week of the season and whatnot, but there's also the potential to lose the matchup was close, but Chiefs could have very easily lost this matchup, I think, if Sin were a little bit more set and ready, and, you know, this wasn't their first professional outing, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think I commented on Twitter about Ejim. He was playing Alistair, and he made a couple of mistakes that made me feel better as an Alistair player. As a crappy Alistair player, that was good. But I mean, I think
what's that best Alistair OC or whatever?
Yeah, there was a couple of things. Though was it Destiny? I think gave him a bit of a run for his money later on in the day. There was at least one play that made it into made it onto the League of Legends, or the LoL Oceania Twitch feed. That was, you know, it was pretty interesting stuff. But anyway, I mean, I just thought Chiefs look really strong. I mean, they basically, apart from that rough start, you know, they just looked pretty much where they were at last split, and that's good as a Chiefs fan. So, yeah, they just ended up crushing the hell out of them, which is exactly what you want to see. I think the added aggression of Ejim is really good. I think, and Radio was playing a lot better this game than some of the games during the wildcard, the MSL wildcards. So I mean, that's good to see that he's got some good form. That it's not going to hopefully lead to a prolonged slump, because that would really hurt their chances. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Game 1, week 1. I don't like Chiefs' chances.
Yeah, no,
I think
it's
needed that in the bottom lane as well. Just a switch up in terms of roster, you know, giving him more of an aggressive support. Rosie wasn't so much an aggressive support. Rosie played off-meta champions, but they weren't so playmaking. They were more pokey, if anything. Like, that's the style of bot lanes that they were running with Rosie there.
Support Ziggs, like.
Yeah.
What?
And lots of Zillion and, you know, Vel'Koz and all that sort of stuff as well. Yep. Which was, I mean, that's got value in and of itself.
That was before Viper's work. We've covered that on a couple of shows, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was the consistency of his stun that was obviously showing him there. But yeah, you know, you didn't see Rosie playing Alistair all that often. He more is, if in that sort of case he resort to Thresh, which Thresh can make plays, but it wasn't a playmaking Thresh that we're seeing from him. And I think Radier, I think, is relishing in the fact that he's now got a playmaking support alongside him. He can snowball the map a lot more. And his team fights and late game mechanics have always been fantastic. His farm mechanics have always been fantastic. And I feel like Chiefs have always thrown him onto these mid to late game carries that, get a few items into the lane and then move from the lane, into some pressure around the Dragon Pit. And having Rosie there with him has definitely benefited Radia significantly.
And I mean, we saw the wildcards last year with Legacy that EGM on Alistair can be absolutely godly. Like he was just, I mean, he absolutely crushed in those first couple of games with Alistair. So he is a real playmaker, and I think that will, yeah. I mean, it's certainly more exciting to see than So it'd be interesting to see what he's like, with his next game, because he did have, it seemed quite obvious that he was having a bit of a tough start, a bit of a nervous start. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But let's talk about rough starts.
Let's talking about nervous starts.
Yeah, nervous starts. So
Avant-Garde versus Immunity.
And really, both teams had lots of nerves because you had a lot of roster changes. I remember seeing when they brought all the roster changes for both teams up on the screen, and the screen was almost full. So Avant swapped out their bottom lane, which I'm interested in because I thought their bottom lane was the weakest part of their team last split. And then we've had Uber Bro leaving AD for Immunity, and then also what I found out like 5 minutes before the split started was Zahi had left, and I, Steve, you then told me that he left a little while ago, but still lots of roster changes, sort of, yeah.
Yeah. See, Uber Bro left pretty much at the end of the last split. He made the decision that he was going to leave early, whereas Zahi wanted to continue playing, but after a little while, he decided that he was done. So we were kind of thrown into a logistical nightmare, I would say. where we're trying. Yeah, I don't want to get into specifics on it or anything like that, but basically our one of our subs, Miss Fish, whose name's mentioned quite a few times on the podcast for a completely different context. He got to step up for his very first stream professional game.
Yep. And
in the jungle role, taking over the spot where Zahi had left, and unfortunately he got counter jangled at like level 2 or 3.
Yep. At his blue buff.
At his blue buff, lost the blue buff, gave up first blood to Zed, and
that's not the problem, right? The problem was that the only real problem out of that was the fact that that Fish died. If Fish had stayed alive and continued to gather XP from that point, he would have been totally fine. Because Cheese just was like, oh look, this Zed's got first blood, he's worth slightly more gold. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually,
wait, Shelby's ganking? I'll take that too.
Yeah. I mean, and actually, after a little while, so apart from that rough start, he managed to get an assist. He actually got ahead in farm. So I actually think that kind of by the mid-game, Fish actually wasn't that far behind. I think it was just really a case that every lane apart from mid kind of got... I mean, Porky in the top just went massive on Rumble. I mean, I can't remember what his final score was, but I know at one point he was 4-0-6, and he was about 40 farm up on Dew. And he was I mean, basically it was a clinic in how disgusting Rumble can be, and just sort of the crazy damage he does. I mean, there was this trade we did with Dew on top with, I mean, Dew was playing Gnar, and Gnar is known for, his base damage is not bad. Like, Gnar is not a bad champion, but he was just getting absolutely crushed, like, by the massive damage on Rumble.
Yeah, it was that trade in specific. I do actually recall that trade. There's a couple of reasons why I don't like Rumble, and as well that particular matchup. Now, the casters were saying that, particularly Spawn was saying that Gnar should beat Rumble. Gnar should beat Rumble like level 1 to 3, potentially 4. Like as soon as Rumble gets 2 points into the Flames better, he's totally fine. Like that's when he starts to bully Gnar around. Gnar can come back in and bully Rumble around post level 9 with some magic resist, because his Q is the real damage he's looking for in the boulder toss or the boomerang toss, and it only starts to do a decent amount of damage at that level 9 point. Prior to that, the cooldown is too high and the damage is too inconsistent in range form that he's just Na is just like a safe farm up, get to mid game, make fights.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the comp that Immunity went for, right? They went for the Sejuani, they went for the Na. The Na is supposed to set up for the Sejuani ult, in that he jumps in, he hits the W, he stuns them against the wall, Sejuani then walks up and it's just like, oh look, three-man ult. That's how that comp was supposed to go. Fish, you could just tell Fish was nervous. He wasn't playing like he normally was.
Yeah.
Just got pressured. He didn't feel comfortable in the jungle. That was just written all over his play. I don't think Ryu felt comfortable in the top lane. Shelby put a lot of pressure up there, and you've also got to remember that Shelby was on Rek'Sai.
Yep.
So even though at one point, yeah, you're right that Fish did get slightly ahead, Rek'Sai was just ulting another base.
Yeah, exactly. And Rek'Sai is just puts a lot of pressure on lanes. Like, that's the sort of jungler that Rek'Sai is, and yeah, it's hard to deal with that.
Yeah,
he's got a really, really long range gap close. That's what you've got to remember. It is really long range.
Yeah, and the way you deal with a rumble in those, like, when someone picks rumble in a pro game, these days I just expect that rumble to die twice under tower dives because he's that vulnerable to ganks and the damage early and not being able to CC anyone under the tower and all that. Like, he's got so many weaknesses in that point. But that first blood that set Sejuani so far behind. Sejuani's not known for putting pressure on lanes, not until she's at least level 6 and making plays with her ultimate. So that basically gave Rumble free reign, knowing that Sejuani would have to be power farming the jungle to try and catch up for that initial first blood, that Rumble's inherent weaknesses vanished in that scenario. With that sort of power and with a jungler like Rek'Sai, they really did they gained control of that game really early, and it really looked like Immunity tilted.
Yeah, I mean, Denian was playing incredibly risky. Like, he died once where, they got him quite low, he used some pots to get back, they nearly got him down again, and then he didn't back off. He stayed around and then was killed. So, we got that sort of... I mean, I think T-Gun played really well. Cheese really did... I mean, he crushed hard in the mid lane pretty convincingly. I mean, he got ganked a couple of times and died, but otherwise, I mean, he got solo kills on a Zed.
He almost 1v3'd at some stage.
Yeah.
A 3-man ganked mid lane, and he almost traded 1-for-1.
Yeah.
Against the... I think it was Zed he almost took down.
Yeah.
Like, his mid lane opponent in a 3v1 situation. I think it was Rek'Sai and Alistar.
Yeah.
Rek'Sai ulted to get there. Alistar used the headbutt pulverize, then had to burn ult to run away from memory.
Yeah.
And then he still almost killed Zed.
Yeah.
It was just like a... Oh, damn.
I mean, it's just a reminder that you can't mess with Cheese's Swain. Like, his Swain play is nasty. Like, he's the master of Swain. Like, there's just... Yeah. So,
we actually had, we've got a coach on Immunity. Most teams in the OPL region now, in the OPL, have coaches or analysts of that sort of nature. And he was in full support of picking the Swain in a pro game. And I was just, wow, we're going to see... Swain.
This is coming out multiple times this split.
He's so good. Why would you not have him on it? Why wouldn't you build comps around that capacity? Like, he's just... I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him lose a lane playing Swain. Like, he might have gone even, but and every time I think of, he just dominates. He's just so good on him.
Yeah. As long as the matchup's not against him too hard, because you can tell that when he gets a favorable matchup for Swain, he'll pick it up.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And as long as the team composition synergizes at least partially with it.
Yep.
Because it's not, you don't want to just one-off pick Swain and then have the rest of the team be like a poke non-initiation or something.
Yeah.
That sort of thing doesn't work.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
But of course, with the Gnar and the Sejuani, it was just a perfect... I mean, it needed something high DPS. That's the comp called for something high DPS. So it was literally... There weren't very many picks that fit there, but Swain was absolutely perfect, and to have Cheese, that's the only way that draft actually went as well as it did as well. So it was a very, very good thing that Cheese is a part of Immunity.
Yeah, and I think overall that actually, during the mid-game part, Immunity actually didn't look too bad. I mean, towards the end it got a bit gross for, AV kind of ran away with it. But, I think even with the tough start, there was a period of time there where it was all actually pretty good. They were behind, but they weren't too significantly behind. Yeah. And it was even kind of almost possible they could have maybe even gone even, maybe even got the lead. So, when you saw that first start, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be bad for Immunity. I think overall, I actually watched it and went, oh yeah, that was all right. obviously you
Yeah.
need to work through the things. I mean, I think Drew
Well, I
still
think
seems to be a bit of an issue with him. Like, it just, last split, he was new.
talking
Okay.
about Ryu or
Yeah, Ryu,
Ryu,
sorry,
yeah,
Ryu,
he's
sorry,
talking about
Ryu.
Ryu.
Sorry, Ryu.
yeah. It's twice his name, right?
Sorry, yeah, I keep getting it wrong because you're going to get Flying Drew and Ryu. Ryu, I nearly said it again. Ryu. There's still, I watch him in the top lane and I'm still like, oh, he's just not, I don't know if he's quite there yet. Maybe it's still an experience thing. I mean, who am I to criticize him for not being good enough? I'm nowhere near as good as him. But still, I kind of look at it and think, yeah, I'm just not convinced that he's kind of ready. But, I mean, that could just be a time thing. It's only his second split, so we'll see how that goes. But, I mean, I think overall, there's well, yeah.
You can't even get his name right, but you're willing to throw
Yeah.
out criticism. How dare you carrot Colostomy?
Shut up, you. I'll kick you off this podcast.
Actually, I'm gonna call him carrot colonoscopy from now
Yeah,
on.
you guys are the worst now.
Anyway, but on the,
But
on
yeah,
the
so
topic-
overall, sorry, you go. Yeah.
on the topic of Ryu, he needs confidence. Like if he
Yeah,
can
that's
play
true.
confidently, that wasn't confident Ryu. That comp wasn't set up for Ryu to be a real major carry as well. Ryu was literally there to go even in lane.
Yeah.
If he went even in lane or better, that was a win. He wasn't there to dominate his opponent. It wasn't like picking Aurelia into Rumble, win really, really hard, come to mid game with Trinity Force and Randuin's Omen or something, compared to like just a haunting guys, spell pen boots Rumble, because you just walk all over that. That's a totally different matchup. It was a matchup designed to give Ryu some space. And for the rest of the team, the problem with the composition was that it required Denian to be relevant, and Denian wasn't relevant.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point I think Mistfish missed quite a few Sedge ults, and that's totally understandable.
I was bring that up as probably the primary reason that we didn't turn it around.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
our team composition was stronger. Our drafting was quite on point in that game, and if we'd hit even one of those missed Sejuani ultimates or capitalized at a different moment, that game could have turned out very differently.
Yep.
Again, this was Miss Fish's very first pro game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
In a role that is not Miss Fish's main.
Yep.
With
one of the roughest stats imaginable as well. Like he had to die at blue buff. It's not going to help you at all if you're already feeling nervous.
So, people watching, if people just watch that one game and use that to judge Miss Fish's competency, they're doing him a disservice, because he's proven himself to us.
Yep.
And we've seen him grow as a player from when we first met him as well. So we know what he's capable of, and yeah.
I think the discussion was that when Miss Fish was actually originally mentioned, T-Gun spoke very, very highly of him. So
Yep.
And to get T-Gun's approval, that's not an easy thing to do in any matter. T-Gun is very critical of players, and a lot of players take that incorrectly. But he does it with the correct interests. It's just that a lot of people don't take it that way.
And credit to him, he got pretty much got a solo kill by dragging somebody into the turret because they thought they could mess with him. I think it was Destiny died because he thought he could mess with T-Gun on Thresh under tower, and you just can't. Don't try it, kids. It's not smart.
T-Gun.
Yeah.
T-Gun's the man.
He is. And he had some great lands, and he had some great hooks. If Mistfish had managed to land a couple of those ults really well, I think just the fact that Cheese was so far ahead and T-Gun is just T-Gun, that you probably it would have been a lot closer in the end. But that's just what happens. It's a circumstantial thing.
I want to see so much more roaming between T-Gun and Cheese. When that finally kicks off and they find their straps together, try and hold I am down.
Yeah. All right, well, let's.
It seemed like there's nepotism when we just spend the entire time defending.
Well, I think it was probably one of the most interesting games. So we had Sudden Fury versus Legacy was game 3.
It was a good game, and we had some really critical points on it that were good, I think. So
Legacy won against Sudden Fear. I thought they looked really good. Sudden Fear just were never really in it. They did the old 4v1 top lane gank. The jungler and the top laner in the jungle moving up to a 2v1 on top lane for that first tower. Well, I don't think they got the tower, but they got the kill. They got the first blood on the new top laner for Sudden Fear, who was on Rumble, and pretty much it was over there. I mean, I don't think there was any point in time where it kind of looked like Sudden Fear were going to be in the game. And actually, it was a bit the same with Absolute versus Direwolves. Like, there really just wasn't. They just really just overran them. So
King was so far ahead on Sivir.
Oh yeah.
Like there was a point where King was 2v1, completely overextended. He got exhausted and still managed to trade 1-for-1.
And he juked a Glitter Lance so perfectly.
He
was polymorphed and he jukes the
fight.
Glitter Lance and then still gets the kill. It was like mind blown. Like he's like he's always been great. Like he's a really great marksman, probably one of the best in the league at the moment. So yeah, it was. Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of going to be the thing. Like, who's going to get second? I mean, theoretically, Chiefs are probably they're probably my view a solid bet to be first again. It comes down to Legacy and Direwolves who's going to be second.
Well, funnily enough, Chiefs are the one with Legacy. Like they've got the entire last split dropping one game to a team that's not even in the OPL anymore. So they look like they're going to be like just based on history alone, they're going to be at the top and probably stay at the top. But there's been that many roster changes, and all across the board that this is so unpredictable. Everything just looks like it's going to take a little while for the teams to kind of settle into their new environments and play at their optimal level. So we'll see, because if all of a sudden, there's 5 or 6 teams that can take one game off Chiefs during the season, then or even 4 teams that can 2-0 them, then the season's looking a lot more even.
Well, let's talk about the games that are coming up. So this Thursday, tomorrow night, Sudden Fear versus Absolute, Legacy versus Direwolves, Sin Game versus Immunity, and Avant versus Chiefs. So I would say that Legacy versus Direwolves would be probably the game to watch. Like, I would be interested to see how they match up.
Certainly was last season.
Yeah. Because I mean, really, that's the fight for second and third. You'd imagine.
Well, that's what it was in the finals, the quarterfinals last week. Last season.
Yep. Yeah, and well, I mean, Sin Gaming, I guess it would be a good chance for them to face up against a pretty solid team that's still working out some of the kinks. So I guess there's probably an element of, I mean, you'll probably have Miss Fish for jungler this week, well, this Thursday, correct? Like, you're gonna have him as a sub this week as well, this Thursday.
Do not believe so.
Oh, okay. So you might have a new jungler.
Yeah, we might be using we'll be using. At this point, we're planning on using Zenk, who's our other sub.
Okay.
He's so we're looking forward to that. We're hoping that works out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going with. Speaking with real confidence.
I mean,
No, I believe in our team, and I believe we'll do quite well. And we've done well in scrims. We've got a good history against Sin, so yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good chance for that. Like, I guess, it would be a good opportunity for them to sort of play a team that's probably, I mean, someone like a T-Gun and Cheese, obviously. I mean, they've really experienced really good form with a bunch of others who are probably still finding their feet or working out what's going on and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a good opportunity for Sin to try and get a win on the board. A lot of hype in the scene for them, and that's good.
I should probably actually say we've actually locked in who our new jungler is going to be, but we can't use them until next Monday, and that is Soul Strikes.
Okay. Oh, wow. Great. So Rippy returns. Correct? Yeah.
No, Rippy is not Soul Strikes.
Isn't it? Okay.
Rippy owns Direwolves.
That's what I thought.
If was going to return to a team, it would only be Direwolves.
Yeah. I thought Soul Strikes was actually, I thought he changed his name to Soul Strikes. Oh. So I get so confused by the name changes. It's like, it throws me off so much. Anyway, okay.
Okay. But
Fair enough.
Long story short, it's...
Make me upset.
What?
Just the names that, like, when you sounded so confident when you said that, I'm like, what? Huh? Like I'm doing a history lesson in my head.
Frustrating.
You're making me self-conscious.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, anyway, go Scott.
They made me deal with on a weekly basis whenever my internet is dying, of course.
Yeah. Alright, so we got an Avant versus Chiefs. You'd say it definitely goes to Chiefs. But I guess Avant's... Well, what do we think of Avant's new bottom lane? I mean, I thought they did it pretty well. Against Stenian and T-Gun. Except, I guess, Destiny getting caught under the turret by T-Gun.
Well, I think it's the same situation as the Rumble, knowing that Sejuani's not going to be able to put any pressure on his lane for a while. That he could play as aggressively or as passively as he wanted. So I don't think we've really seen enough out of the bot lane to really make a call on.
There were flashes of everything from Avant's bot lane. There was absolute stupidity. There was
I did see a few dumb flashes in there.
Oh, gee, how many times? Pretty much every time Destiny's flash was burned, it was burned randomly.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Like, you're on Alistair. You should not be putting yourself in a position where you're flashing to not get a kill.
Well, I think he thought he could get the kill, but he kind of mismanaged it a little.
There was a couple of misplays in day one, but
yeah,
yeah.
Nerves.
But anyway.
The first week, I think things will just only improve from here.
I'm very supportive of Destiny as a player. Ever since I first saw him playing, which was before I started shoutcasting, actually. I thought he had some very high mechanical skill, and I did think he would go far.
You started shoutcasting ages ago.
18 months ago. Longer than 18 months ago, yeah. I saw, before we had... This was the season where we originally had the packs, and it was just the packs. Like, there was a qualifier building. Yeah, I saw him not long before PAX that year. Streaming and doing some stuff around a forum that I was a part of. And yeah, I've always thought he's had some real mechanical skill. And I'm very impressed by the way he's grown as a player as well. Back in those days, he was very arrogant, very attitude heavy. And he's not so anymore. He's greatly improved. Yeah, so I'm keen to see that, and Warble Google as well, matching with that part of the bottom lane. Another player that's been around. The first pro game I ever shoutcasted was with Warble Google in it, and I'm trying to remember. Google Gaming as a part of an OCG tourney for $10,000 in December 2013.
Yeah, wow.
Some impressive recalls.
Yeah, I know.
And... they might have been playing against Immunity, actually, at that phase. No, or Avant-Garde. I can't remember who they were playing against, but I'm pretty sure I had to do some research in AV because I wanted to nail that cast, so I remember working hard for that one. Another player that does have some potency, but again, phased with flashes of... That was really, really stupid. That was sort of stupid.
Yep.
That was mediocre. That was good. That was brilliant. And I think the meshing between Destiny and Warble Google is going to take some time to come together because Destiny headbutted Denian away from a boomerang blade.
That was
So thank you, Destiny, for making it not so bad the other day.
Yeah. We should also make mention of the games that are on Monday because we sort of we split the weeks. We divide the weeks. So you've got
week 1, day 2, and week 2, day 1.
Yeah. So you got Sin versus Avant, Sudden Fear versus Direwolves, Immunity versus Chiefs, and Absolute versus Legacy. I'd say Sin Gaming, you've got a similar situation with Immunity where they've got a team that's still... They've got a couple of players who are finding their feet. You think it'd be I'd say probably even a less... probably a little bit less of a chance of getting a win, just because I think Porky and Kensty and Shelby are just... I mean, they're really solid players. So there's sort of there's a few... One less player that's kind of still trying to work things out or trying to get established. So it'd be a good experience for them to see kind of where they're at, because if they can really take it to those guys, to both Immunity and to Avant, you'd say, okay, these guys are real contenders. Yeah. And then there's, I guess, Immunity versus Chiefs, which will be a real test for Immunity to see where they're at with Soul Strikes. I imagine it's not going to be pretty, but that makes me happy since I'm a Chiefs fan. Sorry, Steve.
That you're allowed to be.
All right. Well, is there any final comments before we want to move on to... we got this OPL ruling to talk about. So,
yeah,
you wanted to bring that up, Steve. So,
Yeah, there's been a little bit of background drama. Like there's been a couple of rule changes from the previous season to the new season, um, and most of them are like just minor tweaks here. One of the things is now that Riot are supplying their own TeamSpeak channel, so that all teams just log into the server, and that way it's all under Riot's control. Which previously everyone else would have their own, and then the Riot moderators would go into their channel. So it's just easier this way. They control the accounts, they control everything, and it's all fine. But one of the rules. Oh, sorry, you sounded like you were going to say something, Rancunian?
Yeah, and the other thing is that it means that we'll probably actually see some all chat coming through from the OCE teams as well,
Which
because they'll be
could be
recording
very
chats.
cool. Yeah.
So
One of the things that they've written into the rules about this new TeamSpeak thing that I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what I don't know what the guys at Riot have actually said on this, of whether or not it just accidentally slipped through the way it is, or whether it was intentional and they're trying to work around it as it's written. But they state in the rules that only the 5 players who are playing the game are allowed to be in the channel, which means managers and coaches are no longer allowed to be in the team speak with the teams as they go into champ select. So like the coaches, it's quite a big deal for solo queuers out there. They probably don't realize just how important this role is, but coaches do so much. Like they organize team compositions, team synergy, win conditions such as protect the Cogmore and he'll carry, or severe roles with the engage with Nar and Jarvan, like all that sort of stuff. They build the comps around that. They give everybody a battle plan. They assign laning matchups and all that sort of stuff, and give everyone kind of a battle plan going in. They do a lot more. That's just a general overview of what they do. And to have that portion of professional esports taken away from the Oceanic guys is just, it's a bit confusing to me. Almost everyone's kind of against it, and I know Riot Games always want to do what's right for growing the Oceanic region. So and I know that they're looking at it and going, okay, we'll figure out what's happening, and they haven't come to a final resolution on that. But no, it's just it's something that a lot of people are kind of worried about right now. I'm sure it'll get resolved, but I just thought it was definitely worth mentioning.
Okay.
it's more than definitely worth mentioning. When you throw over to the fact that NA and EU LCS for the first time this year have started allowing coaches during Champion Select.
Yeah, they have an
And
entire
they stand
segment
there.
where they walk
They
together
walk
and
through
shake
to the
hands.
middle of
They
the
made a big
stage.
deal. Yeah, and that's what we're really aspiring to be. We want to be like that level of quality esports up there, and it's like we've had that bit denied to us. And I'm my guess when I first read this was that, okay, someone kind of stuffed up on the original draft and it made it past or something. But I don't want to say that's what happened. That was just my immediate reaction, because like everybody knows that everyone in the esports scene knows how important coaches and analysts and management can be in in those starting few minutes. Once champions are locked in and summoners are done, get the hell out of the channel, or just mute yourself or whatever. But listening into comms is important for coaches as well, for providing feedback. And if we're not in the comms, then we can't listen to there's a lot of things that this really does restrict the region on, and I really just want to see the region grow. So that's newsworthy is what I would call this. Definitely newsworthy.
There are certain players as well. I'm not going to mention any names, but there are some definite players around the pro scene as well that play and com very differently in scrims to what they play and com like in game. A positive example would be Nada. Before he stepped down, he was a lot more, I think, a lot more serious in scrims, and then a lot more social when the real thing came around. But that was just his personality.
It's a bit
Um,
strange.
well,
Think
it was
it'd
the
be the
fact
other
that
way
he
around. Okay,
was.
now we're playing for stakes. Now it's time to put my serious face on.
it was when he could, because when he was scrimming, it was focused around his study time as well. So I was eating into that more time. So he had to be a bit more serious. He had to do it, focus on it, get it out of the way, move on to study. Whereas when he was going things to like PAX, where that fantastic video of him and Shelby, interacting, came out of, he was there to focus on League of Legends. That was his primary focus. There are other players, and again, I just won't mention them because it's no point. But yeah, there are players that take scrims super lighthearted, and then the real thing comes around, and they're a totally different player. And a coach can't tell them how they need to improve in the game if they can't hear that. They're only going off the player's feedback, and sometimes you need more. Well, actually, in that sort of a scenario, you need more than just the player's feedback to improve that. You do need to listen to the live comms, so that is a significant step back. There's also, you mentioned it, drafting and setting up of win conditions, right? You can tell a player that yes, he's playing Aurelia, yes, he's playing Na, yes, he's playing Shen. What is his goal then for the lane? Let's for example talk the Rumble versus Na matchup between Porky and Ryu from Monday's night game between Avant-Garde and Immunity. Porky was trying to aggress and win the lane, especially as soon as he knew that Sejuani was going to be making no presence on the map. Whereas Ryu's role was to go even. He was going to form into a huge, beefy tank frontline that Rumble couldn't burn through. Rumble had to DPS the backline, but when there was a Sejuani and a Nara in the way, he couldn't get there. So, Ryu might have needed that encouragement and should have been able to tell. Maybe he thought his role was to win the lane heavily, and, setting that sort of stuff up, it's very matchup dependent, and those matchups aren't locked in.
Compositional. And
compositional, yes, matchup and compositional dependent. In the same way, Cheese might have been playing a Swain into a Ryze or something different, and may have been the lane bully, whereas in the Ryze Swain versus Zed matchup, it's sort of a counterplay matchup. You wait for Zed or the opposition jungler to do something, and you counterplay that. You're not actually ever really aggressing until you've gotten the health bar and mana bar. You've got a decent mana advantage. If you're 25% mana and he's still above 50% health, you can't continue to go aggressive. You've got to continue to play that counter matchup. Those sorts of things. That particular stuff, because of Cheese's mastery level on Swain, comes instinctively to him. He understands that matchup specifically because Swain's matchups in particular are very lane focused.
And as I said earlier, you can't just run Swain with any composition. You need to have certain champions or certain synergy, and a coach really helps identify that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and disallowing them any potential to influence the champion select, and then give the players goals to work towards, and then thoughts around itemization and what points that they are stronger. For example, in not every matchup, Cheese will build a tier and then go immediately into a Rod of the Ages. In that matchup, he got ahead, so he did so. Is that an itemization that you should be going for? Is the coach going to be saying, hey, you need to be at this item spike by this point, or don't go this item pathing? And that may directly impact the course of a game. So, that's stepping away from that, and especially, like, we already mentioned how much of an impact it did have on the changing environment within the North American and European scenes. And then I've been working with Smite, obviously, and then you carry this across to Smite. I don't think there are actually any regulations on this on Smite. I think coaches can and managers can be in those chats for these sorts of things. So I would like to see it definitely change back, and immediately. This should not be a problem past week 1, week 2, if it can be rectified.
Fakat, the manager of Advance, just mentioned in chat that another point of contention is the way that other wildcard regions approach the coach issue also. Are we denied this right while a region like Latin America North and Turkey are allowed it? Riot feels out of touch on this issue. Which, it's a fair comment to make. I can't imagine, if the teams feel that it would be better to have the coach in there, I imagine they'll let you, make it reality. I know Riot sometimes do weird things, but generally they're pretty receptive to feedback and pretty receptive to what the teams have to say. So I can't imagine a situation where they're just going to say no, under no circumstances will we change this. I mean, if the teams feel like it's necessary. So I guess we'll have to see how it pans out. We actually should probably move on into the discussion because we've only got 15 minutes left and we've still got half a patch to talk about. But
well, yeah, it's just the fact that this issue in particular, I really like the fact that you brought it up, Steve, because it's so out of line with what Riot are doing across the rest of the world, and indeed we see so much specific play and matchups, and the fact that Korea are now allowing, Faker and EasyHoon to switch out in between matches and whatnot. That's different to how it's obviously modeled here in best of 3 scenarios as well. So that's something that I think needs to be focused on. I mean, we're obviously not going to have switch outs of mid laners, but the fact that a coach can say, hey, we're going to play this sort of comp, we're going to sub in, Faker instead of EasyHoon. So,
well, we could have easily have done that with, say, Denian and Uberbro. Like, because Uberbro and Denian have very different play styles, and they both have different forms of synergy with T-Gun. So we could have gone, all right, we're going to play for the late game, we're going to get a late game carry, so play the laning phase really passively. We'll sub in Uberbro for that. But if we want to go, okay, we're going to go for early tower pressure, we're going to go for really hard aggression and dragon control, we'll sub in Denian. Like, there's like that. Those opportunities exist now, but they're not really allowable under the current rule structure. There's a few things that our region doesn't have access to just because of geography and the fact that it's all online, and like there's a few things that we can do, a few things that we can't do that put us at an advantage or disadvantage, mostly disadvantage in terms of professional play, or bandwidth allocation, all of that jazz. Like there's those things that restrict our region in certain ways. So we want to try and get as many advantages as possible. And I really do think coaches at Champ Select and management, like if a player, has some disconnection issues or needs support of any kind, like, oh, I really need to know what my blah 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 rune page was, and I sent it to you in an email or whatever. Like having support there to help out can like the last minute fixes is really important. So less so that, more the coaches, absolutely, but yeah.
all right, well, let's move on because we've only got a few minutes left and we need to
TLDR version of the patch. What's remaining of the patch?
Well, we'll just talk about a couple of things. We won't talk about that all. There's a few changes that we haven't talked about. Little things. Let's talk about the major ones in my view. So we'll talk about. Though I'd pick up on Tristana because she's had. So they're still trying to sort out what her role is going to be. They've increased the bonus damage per stack from 25 to 30%. So that's potentially a 20% increase on damage on that ability because it's per stack. So it stacks 4 times, and the cast time is reduced by attack speed. So basically, she spends she can combo a lot quicker. 20% increase on damage is pretty sizable, I'd say. Steve, you've always been a bit critical of Tristana. Do you think this is gonna?
Well, I think she's pickable. Like this change, like you can pick her as kind of a generic AD carry, but you wouldn't pick her you'd pick her for laning reasons and tower pressure reasons rather than any particular composition. She's just another AD carry now. Like her numbers aren't looking that bad at the moment, so yeah, we'll probably see her. We'll almost definitely see her in professional play, but
we saw her at OPL this week.
Exactly, and but I just wish we had the old Tristana back. I loved her so much.
I mean, I think this is kind of like this ability seems to be where they're focusing a lot of her overall thing. Like her overall kind of drive is on this ability. Be it towers or be it champions. So I kind of like that they're pushing more in that direction. It will give her an interesting way of playing, and it will give her a bit of a niche. Especially with patch 5.10, they're nerfing Jinx, which is going to reduce her tower pushing abilities like early in particular. So maybe this sort of opens up an opportunity for Tristana to kind of be more in that niche as the, maybe with her and Caitlyn as that sort of the premier tower pushers. Tristana especially so in the later game. So yeah, I think it's a good direction to be pushing her into. Trundle. So this makes me excited because I like Trundle. I love to troll. So the slow on his Pillar of Ice goes to 30, basically is increased by 5% across the board, and the knockback distance has been increased. Now, it should make mention, now, I'm pretty sure Trundle got some other buffs recently with his E... Yeah, like the cooldown on his E was reduced, I think, or something like that. I'm just trying to find it. What do you reckon of...
I think the biggest buff to Trundle was the Cinderhulk and Righteous Glory introductions, because they made tanks picked more often. Therefore, he was more viable just based because he steal those stats. But I really do like this change because the knockback distance going from 150 to 225, it's still not massive, but that is that's a significant improvement. And the slow, just slightly better. Because previously my complaint about Trundle is that he's basically just walked around in circles, waiting for the enemy team to make plays. Like with that that tiny adjustment, well, yeah, it's a pretty sizable adjustment to his knockback distance. He'll actually feel like more of a threat, more a potential play stopper, if you will, to enemy engages or team fights or counter ganks. Like, yeah, I think this makes Trundle feel more powerful, which is going to be huge.
I mean, it's like, that's right. So the cooldown at rank 5 is 11 seconds. So once you got a bit of city out there, basically you can have a pillar up all the time, which is pretty crazy considering 50% slow is it's quite a large area, and to add a knockback onto that, it's pretty gnarly. So yeah, I like it. Zed. So this one, as a bronze player, this is great. So Zed now, there's a 1 second cooldown before he can reactivate to return to his Deathmark Shadow. So it's to stand around for a second. Yes, Zed's standing around for a second. So good.
Zed's dead, man.
Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
No, I don't think this is going to stop.
It's not going to stop pros at all. Not for a second,
Like,
because they're so good. They know how to use that window, and not die.
In the worst case scenario, you might take an extra tower shot when doing a dive. Because ideally you were staying there long enough to get off a full spell rotation after you've done it, and then get out. Because you don't just deathmark, like, very, very few times you'll see someone deathmark in and then just leave. Like, you've got to go auto attack, spell cast, and you can do that all very quickly. So, like, that lack of mobility will hurt him, don't get me wrong, but I still think Zed's a very powerful pick.
Yep. I mean, I think for players who are less skilled, it gives them more of an opportunity to actually get a hold of him and kill him, which is good.
This will definitely screw up people who are attempting to tower dive without all that much experience at it, because they've just got they've got less window to make up for their miscalculation, essentially.
All right, Cinderhulk. So this is a reasonably big change. So basically, they're reducing the damage per, like, the sort of the offensive power of Cinderhulk, and increasing the kind of the jungle. It's used in the jungle. So so basically, it does 100% bonus damage to monsters, but they've reduced the base damage from 16 plus 1 per level, scaling up to 24. Plus 1.5 to 15 plus 0.6. So basically less champion damage, more jungle damage. I think it's good. I mean, we'll probably see... I wonder if we'll see less of it in the top lane.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember back in Season 2 when they did a whole bunch of changes, is they were very careful when... What was the name of the item? Wriggle's Lantern. They really wanted Wriggle's Lantern to be a jungle item and not like a laner's item. And we were seeing, like, Vayne pick it up. We were seeing top laners, like, just people in different lanes picking up this item. It just had so much going for it. It's been removed now after being like temporarily building out of Hunter's Machete and all that sort of stuff. But Cinderhulk has come in and has basically gone back to whatever. Like the stats on Cinderhulk was so good and so gold efficient that it was worth not taking Flash on a top laner.
Yeah.
Just think about that sentence for a while. Not taking Flash on a top laner to get the benefits of Cinderhulk. Every single, like, for the last 4 or 5 years, every single champion in every single lane and jungle has taken Flash.
Yeah.
With a few, like, end of the bell curve exceptions, like Singed and Olaf in certain compositions. You know, like, that...
I mean, heck, Twisted Fate takes Ghost and Flash because he sacrifices an offensive ability so he can take this Flash. Like, that's how amazing it is.
Yeah, so that's cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah.
The analysts out there and the pro players and the millions of people playing on solo queue have ultimately come to the statistical conclusion that it is worth losing Flash to be able to buy a Cinderhulk.
Yeah.
That is your cost-benefit analysis right there. Yeah. So... we're not going to see the end of Cinderhulk nerfs. It's still the best item. The damage change on it, definitely welcome, because it was just doing too much. Just doing too much.
I mean, I always found it weird that it deals more offensive damage than Sunfire Cape. Like Sunfire Cape kind of was always like, you know, it is the offensive tanky item as opposed to something like a Randuin's or whatever. You know, not doesn't cost as much, but it does damage. You know, that was its thing, and it did actually quite a bit less damage than a Cinderhulk that charged all the way up. So I always found that kind of weird. It's like, well, surely that, you know, it's an item designed for tanks. Tanks don't do damage. Why are you putting more damage than a damaging tanky item for top lane? Like, it just kind of, it was always weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, I mean, really, like, I'd be interested to see, like, how much more damage you do. Well, I guess it's Cinderhulk is being the buff. Like, I was just thinking, you know, because tanky junglers obviously struggle earlier with the creeps. But I guess Barmy Cinder wasn't buffed to do double damage to jungle creeps. So, yeah, I guess that it's probably not that much help in the early stage of the game. Yeah. All right. Well, the only other. Should we talk about Skirmish and Saber's been? Well, it's actually been substantially nerfed. That you don't reduce the damage that they deal to you, and the challenging smite duration has been reduced by 2 seconds from 6 to 4. So, you know, that's actually pretty. I mean, I guess that's probably why we might not see so much of Skirmish and Saber in the top lane.
Have you read the quote here? What is it? Was it when we first shipped Skirmish and Saber, we made that debuff duration long to really emphasize its extended combat use. Plonk it on an invading Lee Sin, smack him around a few times, and suddenly he's reconsidering his decisions in life.
Yeah.
I love these guys. I love them.
Oh, actually, sorry. I got it wrong. It reduces incoming true damage from the challenged target. Okay, so you still... Say that? Yeah, no, I
you're reading it directly off the screen.
No. Like I thought I said it no longer reduces damage at all. So you still reduce damage coming from the other person, just not true damage. That's okay. That's not a big thing. And okay, Dragon, it does more damage as well. So yay. I don't think I've seen. I mean, when we were watching OPL yesterday, like they're still going for early dragons. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they have to really look at like, because I mean they've increased the damage per second from 4.45 to 5.5, and the base damage by 25. Didn't really seem to stop anybody on Monday.
No. Well, it's because like I got to make something clear about here. Professional play, Dragon's almost never going to be a threat. Like Baron will be because of that debuff that he gives you that makes everyone else do more damage. But like this is really going to impact in solo queue because you think, you know, Vi and Nunu going up to solo Dragon at level 3, you know, no sweat on forehead, you know, just whatever, let's just do it. You know, that this buff is going to hurt those sort of players because all it takes is one Rek'Sai to be walking past and oh hello, free kill.
Free kill. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I gotta say this change to Mark Dash for hailing if this is really great because I was sick of getting peppered with snowballs and like actually losing a sizable amount of health. Now they've jiggled it, so you have to actually dash to do the damage. But yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for 5-9.
80 carries launching themselves into the fray.
Yeah.
Like, what are you
I
doing?
have seen that. It's always hilarious. It's like, thanks for the easy kill. Have some CC. Alright, well, patch 5.10 has actually been announced already. It's coming out on Friday. So we will have, unsurprisingly, patch notes for you next week. It doesn't look too ridiculous. Like, it looks like there's not that much. Well, probably the biggest change is Abyssal Scepter's been changed, I think. No, not going on 5.10. So there you go. Yeah, there's not heaps to do. Very interesting change to Ardent Sensor, which looks exciting. I don't know if it'll be any use, but it'll be better item. Actually,
kidding? You'd buy it, Carrot.
I would absolutely not. Actually, speaking of items that are not worth buying, you should listen to the last couple of episodes of the Trinity Force podcast. They talk about, they talk about noob trap items. They don't. Yeah, they basically talk about items that you probably shouldn't buy. So,
is it another Frozen Mallet episode?
It is. Frozen Mallet is discussed, along with a bunch of other things.
ZZ-Rot?
Yep, ZZ-Rot, Zeke's Herald, Ardent Sensor, they kind of basically lump runes in that category as well. Yeah, it's interesting. Right, particularly the runes. You need to tell everybody in the Oceanic community to listen to it just for the runes discussion because I'm sick of seeing champions with runes that aren't Callista. Like champions other than Callista that have runes. It's like, no.
Kale?
Don't. Well, okay, Cal. I'll give you that.
Yeah, but we don't see
Cannon?
No.
No.
What?
Kate-
No.
Yes,
No.
it can.
No,
Stacks
Caitlin.
Cannon's W quicker.
We don't care.
And Caitlin's
No.
passive as well.
No.
Someone has
We're
fallen into
serious.
the trap.
You have fallen deep into the noob trap.
Who doesn't
All right,
want
we're
landing
gonna-
headshots every second attack?
We're
Someone
gonna.
who's orders Zonya's hourglass,
Yeah.
which is a far more important
And
item.
make your traps do a ton of damage.
Yeah. Well, since Zonjas would be funny at least.
I'm talking
alright.
about for Cannon. It's a core item.
Oh, okay. I was thinking for Caitlyn as well. It should be
for
probably be better.
Caitlyn?
Still,
Yeah.
still probably be better than Runa's Hurricane.
No.
Well,
Although I have seen. Oh, I can't remember. It was like a pro game, like last year sometime, where Twitch bought a Zonya's hourglass, and it was just like spray and pray under the inhibitor. What was it? Pro game or was it a solo queue stream? I can't remember.
It was a pro game. It was a pro game.
Yeah, and he just spray and play, brew the hell out of like, and then like they blew all their flashes to get on top of him, and he's Zonya's hourglass, and just his entire allied team just completely just conjoyfed the guys that tried to go on him, and just everyone's laughing their heads off. That was brilliant.
couldn't be any
Like,
better
that's a team that has too much gold.
Couldn't
right
be
there.
couldn't be any better than Darian's full AP Renekton build. That was something.
Have you not heard of the Lizard Wizard before that?
The Lizard Wizard.
The Lizard Wizard. That is by far the best title for any champion build ever in the history of League of Legends.
It's
I
not
really
The
my
Lizard
title.
Wizard build.
It's
I
a
really
YouTube
want-
video.
I really want that to be like a ranked division. You know how
Yes!
like you get in
Yes!
like, Sorceress
Oh
Lux
my
and-
goodness, that would be the best.
the Wizard Lizards.
Yeah, the Wizard Lizards.
Lizard Wizards.
We should make a team.
Necton's Lizard Wizards.
We can claim another ranked team name of the Lizard Wizards.
That's it.
All right. Well, we're pretty much done. Was this shout out? Was this new or was this an old shout out? Papa Smithy. Anyway, shout out to Papa Smithy for getting a job with OGN.
No,
Yeah, you
that's
got a
new.
job. Yeah,
That's-
because it happened like the day after we recorded last
Yes,
week.
that's
It's
right,
been a
yeah.
week and a half since our last recording, so. No, I wanted to give it a big shout out to Papa Smithy, who now works with OGN.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Just huge.
Old friend of the show.
Apparently it's huge.
Yeah.
None of this disparaging talk of Papa Smithy. There will be no disparaging talk of Papa Smithy on this show as long as I'm a host.
Unless it's the Christmas episode and he's on the show.
Yeah. Well, that was funny.
Get him behind his back.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean,
All right.
He works hard. He deserves it. He does.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. He's taking over from Chobra, so that's some big shoes to fill right there.
That's because Chobra has taken off to ESL, to go
yeah.
do Counter Strike.
Yeah. All right. This has been episode. Sorry, go.
I was just going to say, so many of the people that I've been following for years and have talked to and on Twitter and they're just going places. That's it.
Yeah.
I am being interviewed for LoL Esports. I used to write.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I've got stuff on LoL Esports. Things are changing in
Really?
the world. Like people who put a lot of effort in are getting what they
Getting
deserve.
their dues worth.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting their dues.
So I'm happy.
My fiance
Oh,
just
right.
got home. I'm getting dinner. I
Okay.
deserve dinner.
Fine. We are finished. That's episode 88. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.